Hey guys, so I decided to recreate my very first skateboards as fingerboards, matching the original 80s shapes and colorways the best that I could. And I've got the first 5 completed here, and I'm really stoked with how they turned out. I think it might be fun to make sort of an 80s skate shop diorama with a bunch of my favorites from back in the day, or maybe a diorama from one of those old California cheapskates ads. I recently made a video about what's the deal with fingerboards these days, and in my research I found quite a bit of DIY content, and I was like, I think I could do that too. So in this video I'll go through the process of how I made these, and some tips that I learned in case you might be interested in making some of your own. This was my very first real skateboard that I got back in the day, and somehow I managed to hang on to it all through all these years. And this was the first one that I decided I wanted to recreate. And so I've got this little deck here, and I've got the same blue and green fade with the natural color background. And I really love how this one turned out. I think it turned out awesome. So my second skateboard back in the day was a Kevin Staab Pirate deck, and this one here is a reissue from like 15 years ago. And the OG one that I had was purple, and so I feel like I've recreated that purple one really well here. And then my third one was this Tony Magnussen Trauma Series X-Ray deck. I think this one turned out really well. I'm really pleased with its overall fit and finish, and I think this might be the one that I'm most proud of in all of these here. And then my next skateboard after that one was a Mike Vallely, and this one here is just a reproduction that I got about a year ago. And the one I had back in the day was a silver colored one. This one is a natural wood color. I didn't have any gray paint, but I think I may recreate this one with a silver color. But yeah, it turned out really awesome too. And I've got the ripper there on the top graphic. And then the last one I made here is the Matt Hensley. I love this from H-Street as well. This one here is also a reproduction, and Matt signed it. I had a red one back in the day around 89 or so, and so I've recreated that here. And I'm really stoked with how this one turned out too, because it was a little bit hard getting those colors to show up on the water slide graphic here. But yeah, the shape and everything about this one is awesome. I love it. Okay, so after these first 5, I've got a whole bunch more that I want to recreate. And I guess my question for you is, if you could go back in time and pick any skateboard model from back in the day, what would you choose? Now let me know down in the comments. I might pick some of them and make them as little fingerboards as well. Okay, so let's step back a couple of days to the build process of how I made them. Let's cover the primary tools and supplies first, and of course you'll need some thin veneers that you'll glue up and press into shape. You'll need some wood glue, a mold to press the boards with, a tiny drill bit that you'll use for the truck mounting holes, and then either a little saw or a knife or something that you'll use to rough cut the board into shape. And then you'll take some different grits of sandpaper that you'll get the final finish. And then if you're creating graphics, you'll need some just traditional paper, or in my case, I'm using this clear water slide decal paper that I'll print the graphics on. I'll put some links to all this stuff in the description below, and I'll show you how I made these in just a minute, but here's a little bit more info on all the stuff that you're gonna need. It seems that most fingerboards are made with 5 plies of very thin maple veneer, and I found this pack here for about 14 bucks at a woodworking store. It comes with 3 sheets that are each 12 inches squared, and it provides enough wood for about 13 decks, so just over $1 per deck. That's not too bad. Next up, you'll need some glue. Polyurethane, like this Gorilla Glue here, is frequently recommended. Then you'll need a press, and there's lots of options out there. Since we're doing 80s shapes that don't have a big upturned nose with lots of concave, you could use a piece of scrap wood and cut it into shape like Alex did over at the Gription. You could purchase a pre-built press, or if you've got access to a 3D printer, you could print a press like I did. Once you've pressed the board, you'll have a blank like this, and then you can trace the shape onto the board and either carve it out with a knife or cut it down to shape with a saw. Then you'll need some sandpaper, and I used 80 grit to get the rough shape, and then 150 to kind of fine tune it and smooth out the edges and take out any scratches, and then I used 220 to get it super smooth. And then you'll want some paint if you're going for the classic dipped look, and maybe some sealer if you want that natural wood look. Finally, for the graphics, you could try hand painting using a stencil, printing the graphics on a piece of paper and then gluing that onto the board, or you could try printing onto some water slide decal paper. That's what I'm going to be doing. Once you've got all your supplies, you can get started. The first thing we need to do is cut our veneers into the right size for the decks, and I'm going with 4 inches long by 1.5 inches wide to fit my press here. Okay, so cutting the veneer, you can cut it with a razor blade or even scissors, but I found that this paper cutter here makes really fast work of it. Okay, so I've cut up enough veneer here to keep me busy for a little while. So I put on some latex gloves because this stuff can be really sticky and hard to get off. We've got our stack of 5 veneers here, and like I said earlier, I've got them in alternating orientations. So we're just gonna start with the first one here, and I'm just gonna take a little bit of this glue and just kind of dab a strip on. So that one's going lengthwise. Next one we're gonna do crosswise. Then our middle layer will be lengthwise again. Okay, next one is cross grain. Trying to decide which side I like better for the outside. Sometimes the grain is a little bit prettier on one side than the other. All right, so we'll just make sure that we've got them stacked evenly again. There we go. Okay, so it's been drying for about 24 hours now, and it's ready to be removed from the press. But before we do that, let's go ahead and drill the truck mounting holes. Okay, so now we're ready. I've just got this little 1/2-inch crescent wrench here, and we can loosen these up. All right, so we've got our blank ready to go. Okay, so the next step is to trace the deck shape onto the blank. And again, there are a lot of ways to do this, but in my case, I've made some templates here in Affinity Designer. Let's trace the shape on here. I've got the Magnussen template here that I created, and I've got the holes here that will match up perfectly with the holes on the blank here. But yeah, then I'm just gonna run the pencil around the edge of the template here. All right, so we've got the shape traced on there. It looks pretty good. Next up, we're going to rough cut the deck out of the blank. Okay, so let's cut this guy out. Okay, so that gets us really close, and then we'll go outside and use sandpaper to get right down to the edge of the lines there. Okay, there's the 150. Now we'll go 220. All right. Okay, so for the graphics, I'm using this water slide transfer paper. So it's basically printer paper that has a clear background. When you soak it in water, it will release from that background and it'll slide right on. I've built up some design skills over the last couple of years, so this was straightforward and a lot of fun for me. But I get that many folks don't have this experience yet. And if not, I would suggest just using the same approach that we talked about for the template, where you find a couple of images on the internet, like this, the Vallely I did here, and just kind of put it in Word and scale it at different sizes and print it off, and then just kind of match it to your deck till you find the one that is a good fit. And then at that point you could cut it out and just glue it on, spray it with some gloss over the end, and it'll still look pretty good. A detailed tutorial on how to do all of this would take too long for this video, but in a nutshell, I find a good reference photo, I trace the left side of the photo, and then I copy and paste it, I flip it over, and then I join those two halves together. That gives me the general shape, and then I use that to sort of stamp out the image or the drawing if appropriate. Then I copy it over to a letter-sized paper document that has my truck hole patterns drawn to scale. I make sure that those are over the image I copied, and then I scale the image until its mounting holes line up pretty well with the fingerboard ones, and then bam, it's ready. I lined all these up and then printed them on clear water slide paper. The challenge here is that most printers don't print white, and they expect to be printed on a white background. So if the fingerboard is going to be dark, any light colors won't really show up, and the white will be totally absent. And this is fine for the graphics that are going on light colored boards, but for ones like the Purple Staab, the colors aren't going to be bright enough. So I think I'll lay down a white base coat of paint on the board before applying. Okay, so I've got the first 4 decks. They're all shaped up and sanded smooth. They're ready for the clear coat. While we wait for the sealer to dry, let's go ahead and get the water slide decals printed. Nice, that looks pretty good. The next step is we need to spray this with some acrylic sealer, and that will protect the ink while we dip it in the water to do the water slide. Okay, so the acrylic sealer is all dried up and these are ready to go, and the decks, they're all sealed up and ready too. So next step is to cut each one of these graphics out individually, leaving about 1/8 of an inch around the edges. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and do the Vallely here first. So let's cut it, the general shape out, and then I'll get it trimmed down to size. Okay, so I've got the Vallely shape cut out, and it matches the deck pretty well here. And so next step, we're gonna drop this in the water here for about 30 seconds or so. Okay, that ought to do it. Let's see if it releases. Yeah, it's starting to release. And it looks good. Dude, that actually does look pretty good. All right, so we're gonna smooth out any water bubbles or air bubbles. Okay, Vallely deck is done. Right, so we'll let these dry for about 3 hours is what the instructions say. And then we'll come back and flip them over and we'll do the top graphic. Okay, let's do Gator next. It looks pretty cool other than the fact that I got some creases in there, but yeah, this one I'll probably come back and redo later. But for the sake of this video, let's just keep moving on. Okay, next up, let's do the Magnussen. This one, I painted the white area a little bit so that the graphics would come through. So let's see how that works. I think that's all right. Dude, that looks sick. I'm really excited about that one. Nice. Let's move those back into view. Okay, next up we've got Kevin Staab. Laying it down. Again, just trying to ease out any air pockets. I love it, man. Last one is going to be Matt Hensley. Dude, that's actually not too bad. Okay, let's smooth it out. Okay. Okay, so my first batch here is finished. I'm really happy with how they turned out. It was a lot of fun, and I'm definitely going to make some more of these. And like I said earlier, I think it'd be fun to make a little skate shop, like an 80s skate shop diorama with these hanging back on the wall on the back. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching the video. I hope this maybe inspired or encouraged you to give it a shot yourself. If you've got questions, let me know down in the comments. I'd be happy to share anything I've learned so far with you. And thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like always, please consider giving it a like or leaving a comment. And if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really helps to grow the channel. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.